Clara Mayorga,
I'm Sebastian Munoz, and behind the camera is Andy Sanchez.
and we are here interviewing Clara Mayorga, and we are doing this on December 8th, 2023 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Alright, hello. We see that you have a couple of pictures that you would like to represent us or want to show us.
Yes. They're not really like in any particular order, but this first picture here is, I think when we first came to the U.S., my dad would take us like just to get to know different parts of Milwaukee. And this one is particular. This is Mitchell Park. It doesn't look right now. It doesn't look the way it used to look. This one it used to have like a little pond in the middle where, like, if you were to go now, that's where I see like people playing like soccer. So it used to have a little pond, and it had around the pond, it had flowers. So this is one of the pictures that we took there. This one has my brother, my older sister, younger sister, and I think this one has like my aunt and my mom. That's the first one there. This other picture here, it has my brother and three of my sisters and my mom. So this is just on the train ride at the zoo. And I think I had like a little lucky rabbit foot that wasn't so lucky because it stayed on the little train. So this other picture is myself and with two of my older sisters. We're like one right after the other one. So I'm the younger of us three. So it's like, 1969, 1960, no, 69, 68, 69, 70. But this is a picture, wintertime. We are in front of this elementary school that we attended. So Oliver Wendell Holmes is where we went for grade school. And so we're there standing in front of the playground at the school. This other picture is, again, my two sisters, older sisters, and then my younger sisters. And this is when we would dress up for Halloween. We didn't have, like, go to the store. Maybe they probably had them, but, we just made up our own costumes. And so I think we dressed up as gypsies and then went trick-or-treating. So those were, like, our memorable times when we were younger. This is when we lived on Buffum Street. This picture here, this is the brown house right there. That's the house that we lived on Washington. That's a picture of my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, my aunt and uncle. My uncle is my mom's brother. And so we lived here at 1120 West Washington. We were like half a block down from the St. Michael's Church, the Ukrainian church. So this is just, many years we lived there, pretty much middle school, high school. This is a picture of, I was an altar girl. This is Father Robert Rodriguez, and this is at St. Wenceslaus Church, which is now what is now Notre Dame Middle School on 14th and Scott. So my sisters and I, we all went through being altar girls. So this is a picture with Father Rodriguez. Okay, and then this one is a picture of, I think, three of my sisters, my mom, and of course the tradition of the December making the tamales for Christmas. So here we are in our kitchen. This is at the house on Washington Street. So one of our family traditions.
Could you explain what tamales are?
Tamales are like a dough made of corn, and you season the dough. You spread it on the corn husk, and then you fill it with, like, if you want to do chicken, pork. People will do vegetables now, or beans. We usually did pork, and then you steam them, and then they're really good. And you eat them without the corn husk, you know. So really good. A lot of work, but we would mostly do it for like Christmas. hmm and this one is just one of the. I liked our classes. I went to Milwaukee Trade and Technical High School on 4th and National. So this is a picture of some of my senior classmates for our senior prank. What we did is we went really early, I think like 5 o'clock early, and then we broke the locks that were on the chain for the field, the track field, and we just did a picnic there. So we didn't do anything, malicious to the building or anything put anybody in danger. So we just kind of went early, had our picnic, and then just they let us be there like a little bit, and then we picked up our stuff, and then we went on with our school day. So that was our senior prank for a class of 1988. And those are the pictures that I brought.
So we would like to now get into like your early childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So where would you like to begin?
Well, I would like to begin by saying that I'm not originally from Milwaukee. So I was born in Durango, Mexico, in a little town called Nuevo Ideal, Durango, Mexico. And my parents had 8 children, but when we were over there, 2 of them passed away when they were little. So there's 6 of us left. And then I think when I was about like 6 years old, then that's when my parents brought us over here to Milwaukee. Before we came over, my dad was already living in Milwaukee. So at that time, and then he would go back to Durango, and then he would, I remember him like just buying us some Christmas gifts, stuff like that. So he would go and see us, and he would come back to the U.S. And I remember my mom, she just kind of gave him a choice. Either you come back to Mexico and we stay here, or you bring us to the U.S. So he decided to bring us to the U.S. And then when we first came, even though he was living in Milwaukee, we didn't come straight to Milwaukee. We crossed the border, the bridge, and we went to California, and then we lived there not too long. And then after that, then we flew to Milwaukee.
So when you said your dad, he would come to visit you guys in Mexico. Would he like give you like a imagination of what Milwaukee was like, and like what did you think? Did he ever like explain it?
No, I think at that time I was like like a little kid, so I'm not even thinking about that. I think you're just happy to see him, and just happy to. I think he would kind of like just kind of splurge, So my dad was a very he's passed away, but he was a very generous man. He was the kind of person who would like buy like a big sacks of flour, and either like donate, give some to people, or we would make a lot of food and then share that. But I'm sure he talked about that with my mom, but I think at my age, being little, I'm not even thinking about that. Yeah.
So where did you first go, or where did you first like come to the United States? What was your first?
So I remember we stayed with an aunt in California, and I remember I think there was some things I did not understand. I remember being outside her house, and I remember her telling us like, you can't be outside because the police is gonna take you. And I didn't like, why would they take us? But I think at that time, looking back now, I think she meant like probably like immigration is what, but I mean, as a 6-year-old, I'm not thinking about that. But it didn't make sense to me, like, why would they take us? But that was in California. And then coming to Milwaukee, I'm sure it's in my mind, it seems like, one day after the other, but it was probably like a lot of time in between. But I remember from the plane, we came at nighttime. That's my memory, and just seeing like kind of like at Christmas time how you see all those lights. So that was my view. That was my memory of like from the airplane, just seeing all those lights, like in the city. So it was like a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. I never saw that before. So it was really nice to see that from the airplane. I think we came like around like March, around that time, because it seemed like when we came there was snow, and then not long after, it's like the snow was gone. And then our first house that we lived in was on 12th and Mineral. It was like right across the street from Cago School, and so that was one of our houses that we first lived in. But I think one of my memories is that part about arriving on the plane and then just seeing all those lights, and then the snow. It's like being there one day and the next day being gone. Mm-hmm.
For being in your first house, could you explain like what the neighborhood was like?
I think at that first house we didn't. I think those first few years of just being in the U.S., we didn't really go out much. Part of it is just being in a new environment with different kinds of people. Like, it's like our first time seeing African American people, or just seeing like like Anglo people. So we didn't really know the city too much, so we didn't really go out much. But it was an apartment building on that corner of 12th and Mineral, and that's where I met Bert and Ernie, from Sesame Street, and that's where I saw them, and I was, just really just wanted to keep watching them. But that's my memory of living in that apartment. We didn't stay there too long. In my childhood, the way I'm thinking, maybe we were there longer, but it didn't seem like we were there too long. That was on the south side, and then we moved to the north side. And then our next house we lived on Richards, like a few blocks, like Richards and North Avenue, around that area, across from the elementary school, Oliver Wendell Holmes. Mm-hmm.
How was the transition between homes, and like were there any friends that you made before transitioning?
I think when we first, I don't really remember friends like from living in our first apartment building or living on Richards. I think also Richards, we didn't stay there too long. It seemed like one of the memories that I have of living on Richard Street is washing our clothes like in the bathtub, because we didn't know where to go wash our clothes. And so like in Mexico, we would wash our clothes in the lavadero, just wash the clothes like that. So that's basically how we washed our clothes in the bathtub. Don't really remember like playing outside or interacting with kids in the neighborhood. It wasn't until we moved from Richards, we moved to not very far, maybe like a block away, to Buffum Street. So like North Avenue and Buffum, again, really close to Oliver Wendell Holmes. We lived in a duplex, so we were at the bottom part of that. And then that's where we started, interacting more with our neighbors who were like other Mexican people or from Texas. I know my parents became godparents to a family across the street, to the Galvez family, and just playing outside and stuff like that.
So what would be a typical day in your childhood home in Buffalo?
I don't remember too much in Buffum, but I will tell you about a typical day because after Buffum we moved. I think we lived there maybe like a few years, and then from there we moved over to 11th and Washington, and so I think there I lived like from 5th grade up until I finished college. So a typical day there would be pretty much just like, waking up, going to school. If we were like in sports, like I was in swim and in soccer. So, after school, doing the sport, coming home, eating right away, and then pretty much it was schoolwork. And then later on, senior year, then it was like working. So then that was added onto that. On the weekends, it was my parents would go grocery shopping, and they would leave chores for us to do. Of course, we didn't always do the chores right away, but we would as soon as we heard that car, we were like running around trying to get those chores done. But that's pretty much the weekends, just kind of maybe like sleep in a little bit, do chores. And then if we had something to do like that, we didn't really go out too much. I think part of it is, having or being like an immigrant family, like we don't know what is all out there to do. So it's not like my parents had, like they were hunters or they skied or any of that stuff. So it's pretty much just, at home, and then church, and then maybe hang out outside, stuff like that. Nothing, too exciting.
Going back to school here in Milwaukee, how was the community there?
The community in Milwaukee?
Yeah, in like during school, like the climate around there.
Mm-hmm. Like high school?
It could be. We'll start with middle school.
Mm-hmm. How was the community?
Yeah.
Let's see. So for middle, because I had gone to Oliver Wendell Holmes for grade school, and then since we moved to the south side, then my last year of elementary school, I went to Cago. So that was just like a block away from the house. And then after that, I went to Kazi. Kazi walked to school. I felt safe, walking to school. And then same thing for high school. When I walked to high school, I felt safe, and not sure what else to add on to that.
When you would be walking to high school or middle school, were there any things that you noticed that you look forward to on your journey?
No, I think for me personally, just walking to school, it just kind of get in your zone. Just kind of get in my zone to walk to school. Yeah, nothing really. Just a regular walk.
How would you describe like your surroundings when you would walk?
Well, I think in the morning, since it was earlier in the morning, not much was like, no businesses were open. Not many people, not interacting with many people like in the street. And then after school, I think after school usually I would walk, like part of the way with some friends, depending on who was going where, and just seeing the businesses. I remember walking from Tech home. I would walk up National, and then we had the Lopez Bakery on what is that, like on, I want to say Fifth and National, Sixth and not Sixth, like Seventh and National, around there. I think at lunchtime, back then, Tech used to have an open lunch. Like you could go out for lunch. I don't know. I think most kids. I don't know any kids that did not come back. Like you could go out for lunch. You could go get something. If you had a car, you could go to McDonald's, Burger King, McDonald's. You can, and then just come back. So we would go to. There was like a Mexican store, Trejos. That was near there. Go to the bakery, stuff like that. But just some businesses. But
with your friends, were there any like cultural or language barriers?
No, I think by the time initially yes. I think going to school like at Oliver Wendell Holmes, there was since there was a mixture of, I would say, like the Latinos and then like African American students. I remember that I could understand what they were saying, but I couldn't respond with what I wanted to say to them. But I think by the time I got to like the upper grades of, like fifth grade, sixth grade, I was okay. There was really not a language barrier anymore. And going to tech, so middle school was bilingual, grade school was bilingual, and then going to Milwaukee Tech, that was just all English. So I think by that time I felt very confident in being able to write and speak in English.
When you would go to these Mexican bakeries during lunch, did you ever go with any like non-Latino people, or was it always just like the
Yeah,
Latinos who
it
were
was
there?
always just a Latino. Yeah, yeah. I did have like non-Latino friends, but like for example, like I remember like lunchtime, it was with my Latino friends that I would you know spend my lunchtime with. It wasn't, yeah, it was just having non-Latino friends like in my classes. But as far as spending time, like the lunchtime, it was with the Latino friends.
And that was at high school, right?
That was high school, yes.
Which high school again?
Milwaukee Trade and Technical. That was the name back then. Now it's called Bradley Tech.
Would you say it was segregated, like only Latinos would hang with Latinos and African Americans, maybe with African Americans, and just that type of thing, or was it like everybody combined and kind of like came together as a community?
Let's see. I didn't. I think the I didn't realize then, but Milwaukee was segregated at that time. But I just thought I knew back then that like this is the north side, so you have more African Americans. This is the south side, so you have more Latinos. So I knew that, but I thought that that's how all the cities were, and that's how all the cities, were. But in terms of high school, um, I would say overall everyone just kind of stuck to, I think, whatever you were comfortable with. Maybe I would say maybe the Latinos that went to, let's say they went to if they grew up more with white people, maybe they hung around with them like at Tech, for example. But I think it just depends on kind of like where they kind of went to school or who they grew up with, is who they hung around with. So that's, yeah. But not that I specifically noticed in high school, like you know they're all just hanging out with their own people, kind of thing. I didn't pick it up then. It seemed to me in high school, like I would say, like overall, like everyone got along. I don't remember like in high school that's like, oh my God, like another fight. I don't recall any of that. It was a pleasant time back then.
During high school, did you ever do any extracurricular activities like sports, or like did you join any clubs or that type of thing?
Yes, my freshman year, I did not know how to swim, but my friend convinced me to join the swim team. So it was through that, and plus we all had to take a swim class, but it was that, and then being on the swim team that I would say I learned how to swim. That was just 1 year. And then all throughout high school, I was in the soccer team, but yeah, just through high school, I'm retired now. And then for clubs, I was in the senior council, and then I ran for vice president of my class. So my friend and she was president. She became president, and I became vice president for the class of 1988 at Milwaukee Tech. I was also a PA announcer, so just announcing what we were having for lunch, and who won the sports and who made the goals and all that stuff. Um, what else? I was on like stage crew, just helping out with whatever stage stuff when they had the like the plays, and At Tech we would have I thought that was nice. At Tech we would have where they would show a movie during lunchtime. So you would go eat lunch, and then at a certain time you would pay. I can't remember if it was like I think 25 cents or 50 cents, maybe like 50 cents, and then you could go to the auditorium and then watch a movie. So let's say they were showing, I don't know, Rocky, for example. Then they would show that same little piece, for every lunch hour. Then the next day they would show, the next part of that movie until the whole movie was done. So I thought that was really, it was really nice. Good memories.
What duties did you have as vice president of your class?
Vice president, what do we do? I think one of the big things that we did was we were in charge, and it was not. I mean, we got guidance from the Mr. Howard and Ms. Piccolo. They were like our senior advisors for senior council. But the big thing was fundraising for our senior events, and the big event was prom. So we would do is, I remember we would come in the morning. And we would receive like these donuts, and so we would sell donuts in the morning. We would sell donuts. I can't remember if we would sell the milk or not, but for sure we would sell donuts. And then the money that we collected, then we use that to offset the cost of our prom. And then we had to organize the prom, so we had to call. Our prom was at the Pfister Hotel. So we had to call the Pfister and make the arrangements for when we wanted the prom and what kind of food we were going to have. And then that's with the hotel. And then just, amongst ourselves, what band we were going to have and what was going to be our theme and how much were tickets going to be. So all of that, we had to figure all of that out.
Would you say these extracurricular activities, would they influence you later in life to do new things or stuff like that, or not?
Yeah, even so I ran for vice president in high school. I remember in middle school I ran for student council secretary. I didn't get it, but I think doing that, I remember I put up posters, and I had like a rainbow as my, I don't know, my little logo, I guess, kind of thing. That was in middle school. So I think that running for secretary of student council in middle school helped me to then, I feel more confident to then run for class, vice president, for in high school.
Going back to the Pfister Hotel, could you explain, how would you explain it?
Of the Pfister Hotel?
Yeah, like the imagery of it.
Well, the Pfister Hotel, it's a really nice hotel. For prom, we only went I think it was on the 7th floor was where we had our prom. I knew that it had the same name as where my dad worked. He worked at Pfister and Vogel, so Pfister Hotel. That connection. Just that it's a really nice hotel, really beautiful hotel, really old-fashioned. It has a lot of history, which I'm not fully familiar with. I know one room or somewhere there it's haunted, but just overall, it's a really beautiful hotel. So I'm glad that we had our prom there.
What was your dad's job at Pfister and Vogel?
So Pfister and Vogel is like a leather tanning company. It was, and so he was a machine operator. I'm not sure exactly. I know that they would treat the leather with chemicals. They would run the leather through some machines, probably to make it smoother. They would cut the leather, and that's what I know that went on in there. But I know he was a machine operator.
How did his occupation impact your family's life, and did it influence your perception of the work life or industry in Milwaukee?
So when my dad worked, he worked at Pfister Hotel. He worked at the Pfister and Vogel for. I would say that's like the only job that I would say that he had. Like he didn't like switch like now he works at here, now he works at there. It was like always Pfister and Vogel. So he worked there like over 25 years that he was there. Pfister and Vogel was not too far from when we lived like on the north side. I remember him walking. So he would walk across the Holton Street Bridge and then go down to for work when we didn't have a car back then. But I think one of what I learned from that was just like his work ethic. So I'm sure he worked second shift. So a lot of times we wouldn't see him because when we would get up, he would be sleeping, and then once he would come home at night, then we were sleeping, so we didn't see him a lot. But I think one of the what I learned from that was just his work ethic and his just commitment to being a provider and just to staying with a job for as long as he did.
Were they 8-hour shifts that he worked, or how long were the shifts?
I think they were 8-hour shifts. I don't recall him. Because pretty much when he would get home, we would be asleep. And I don't recall him like having to work like overtime or on Saturdays. So I think it's just kind of like the 8-hour days.
Did you guys live pretty close to Pfister and Vogel?
Well, we did. We did when we lived in the north side. But by the time that we moved to the south side, we had a car by then, so he would just drive to work. But I do recall him when we lived in the north side, when we didn't have a car, like I said, him walking across the Holton Street Bridge and then going down to Pfister and Vogel. That there's like right now there's like that, like I don't know if it's like a water tank. It's still there. But it says, I think, like thyme, like that. It's like a grocery store now that's there.
First time?
Yes, that one. Yeah. So that big metal thing that's outside, that was there. But back then, it said Pfister and Vogel on it. So that's still there. Mm-hmm.
How was the diversity of Pfister and Vogel? Would you say it was more like Latino men, white men, African American men, or how was it there?
I'm not sure. I think there was probably a little bit of everything. I'm sure he had some, like like some Latino co-workers. But I don't. I remember. Well, yeah. But I'm sure. It was probably diverse. Yeah, but he didn't really like talk too. I don't recall him talking too much about work. Mm-hmm.
Can you recall? This is going back to any language barriers or cultural barriers. Could you recall any specific challenges or memorable experience during that time of learning a different language?
Let's see. Memorable experiences. Nothing in particular. I think just a challenge of, like I said, understanding what they were saying, but not being able to respond back. Actually, I do have a memorable experience. I remember, so when we were at Oliver Wendell Holmes, we had an ESL teacher. I don't recall her name, but I remember that she took. It was her and her. I don't know if it was her boyfriend or her husband, but both of them took myself and my two sisters, my sister Dora and my sister Grace. So they took the three of us to the movies, and so it was our first time going to the movies. They took us to watch the Muppet Show. So they took us to watch the Muppet Show, and I can't remember if it was afterwards or before. They took us to a Mexican restaurant. So we had never been to a restaurant before. And I remember eating at the restaurant. I don't know if we ate some other stuff, but I do remember eating like nachos. So that was a really nice memory. And she also gave us like these little donkeys made out of straw. and you can shake them like little maracas. So that's a nice memory that I have from back then in learning English. Hmm.
So, what? Oh, how many family members did you have, and what role did each family member play in your upbringing?
So I have one brother and four sisters. So my oldest sister Maria, um, I think her role, maybe being like the oldest person, is she was kind of like a second mom. So I remember a time in 1980 when my parents went to Mexico, and so my sister Maria and her husband were left, to care for us. Um, that I remember also when I was in high school. Actually, my junior year of high school, and then my senior year, I got a job at a through the Inroads program, which is similar to Upward Bound. I got a job in Waukesha. I didn't drive, so she would take me to work every day, and then she would pick me up. So I always saw her as like a mom, and someone that I could count on. Um, my brother Eduardo, he's always been ambitious. So he works in the banking industry. So he's always somebody that I look to for just like for guidance. I remember in high school when before I would work, that I could talk to him, and I could say, hey, can you could I have like $10, or could I have some money for this and that, whatever I needed. And he would very gladly let me have some money, because I didn't work back then. My sister Dora, I can relate a lot to her. We went to high school together. She's a couple years older than me, so when we both were at Tech, we would walk to school together in the morning, and then sometimes we would walk back home as well. My brother went to college at Parkside on a soccer scholarship. My sister Dora went to Whitewater. So to me, her going to college opened up the pathway for me to go to college as well. One thing that she commented was that my dad had told her, why are you going to go to college if you're going to just get married? Because kind of like you're not going to use your degree or anything. I'm not sure what she responded to him, but she went to UW Whitewater and she graduated from there. And so her going to college as a female opened up the pathway, for me, just easier for me then to go. And I went to UW Madison. And then I have my sister Grace. She's always been someone with determination. She went to South Division High School. After she graduated, she's always kind of been in business, in banking as well. Her and her husband had a corner store. So she's always been someone who just tries something new and just does her best at it. And then my little sister, Adriana, she also started out at Tech, and then she switched over to South Division, and then right now she works for TSA. So thankfully, thank God, I think everyone has been good, productive citizens. And then let's see what else. I think just growing up, I would hang out more with my sister Grace and my sister Dora, probably because we're just so close in age. And then I think my little sister, just saw her as a little sister. It's funny because people sometimes think when I say little sisters, they think like little sister, but she's just younger than me. But I always referred to her as my little sister.
Did your mom have any jobs, or was your dad always the main income for your house?
My mom, she used to work I want to say she used to work at a knitting company. I want to say they would make, I think probably like winter hats. It's just like a knitting company. But she didn't work too long. So for the most part, she's always been a homemaker, which was really, really good for me. Just like coming home and knowing that there's food for me to eat, and then eating right away, and then working on my homework and stuff after that. But yeah, she's I think she worked a little bit, but mainly it was my dad as a main breadwinner.
How come you went to UW-Madison? Were there any other colleges you wanted to go to, and what did you want to pursue at UW-Madison?
So when I was in high school, UW-Madison was the only school that I applied to. So if they would have said no, I didn't have a plan B. That was it. I was pretty positive I'm gonna get into UW-Madison. So I applied, and I did get in. I received scholarships to attend UW-Madison, and specifically I received scholarships in education. So that's what I majored in secondary education. And I chose that because I remember since I was little, I used to pretend I was a teacher. At my house on 11th and Washington, we had, I don't think they're too common anymore. In our basement is a huge tank that they would come, and they would, this big truck would come, and they would run a hose from the outside to the basement window, and then they would fill up this tank with oil. And so that tank was how we would, heat how we would heat our home in the wintertime. And I remember in that basement using that tank as my chalkboard. And so I would pretend like I was a teacher. So that was like when I was little. I remember helping my little sister's friends with their schoolwork. And then once I went to Madison, I worked as a tutor. One of my jobs works as a tutor for the Upward Bound program in Madison. So I think all those things I felt more confident that this was my direction to be a teacher.
And then after you were done with UW-Madison, you went back to Milwaukee to be a teacher, or how was the transition there?
So because my family was living in Milwaukee, so once I studied in Madison, and then part of my my practicum, my practice, I was able to practice at South Division High School. And then, so that's where I practiced, and then I graduated, and then fortunately, a teacher retired, so then I was able to take her spot and then continue teaching there. So I taught at South Division for 15 plus years. During that time, I also went to Alverno, and that's where I got my bilingual certification, in teaching. So I could, officially be certified to teach, bilingually. And then I also went a little bit to UW Whitewater, but then I transferred over to UW Milwaukee. And then that's where I did my master's here in UW Milwaukee.
When did you basically move out of your parents' house? When you got back to Milwaukee, or how did that work?
Oh my God, we're Latinos, so we don't move out right away. Let's see, I moved out. So all through college, I was at home. I think I moved out I think I was 25 years old when I moved out of my parents' home.
While you were in college in UW-Madison, did you stay in the dorms, or how did that work?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, yes, I did stay in the dorms for a couple of years. I stayed in the Elizabeth Waters dorm, and that was just, it's like an all girls dorm. It's by the lake. It's beautiful, beautiful. So I lived in dorms for a couple years, and then after that, I think for 1 year, I moved to an apartment, which was a good experience. But I mean, I didn't really know how to cook, so it was just like a lot of rice and corn and like just oatmeal, basic little foods to survive. But then after that, after being in an apartment for 1 year, then I moved into a co-op, and so it was just an all girls co-op. Um, and the co-op is basically I think we we pay to live there, but what happens is we hire a person to cook for us for the students, for the residents that are there. We do our own cleaning. Laundry facilities are there, like a couple washing machines and dryers. And the co-op is like right there in the university. Um, Most of the people that are in the co-op are international students, so it's pretty much. I think I don't I think I might have been like the only Latina that was there. Um, Maybe a few. That's where I met my best friend Carrie. Maybe not many, not too many like white people. That's where I met her, and then the rest are all Asian students from different parts. I had my good friend from Hong Kong was there, and another friend from Taiwan was there. So, so yeah, different. Couple years in a dorm, 1 year in an apartment, and then a couple years in a co-op.
So then after you went back to your house and then you did your masters and everything and then you moved out of your parents' house at 25, where did you move in after that?
By that time, I had already met my now husband. So then just started my life with my now husband.
Where did you meet your now husband?
I met him. I had seen him at. When I was at home, we used to go to St. Wenceslaus, which is not in there anymore. Went to college, didn't really go to church much. Once I came back home, I really didn't know where to go for church anymore. My little sister, was baptizing her daughter at St. Michael's Parish on 24th and Cherry. And I tried to go to other churches like St. Anthony's. But when I went to St. Michael's, I felt like I could focus. I felt like I was at home. And so I remember seeing my now husband. His name is Gerardo. I remember seeing him there at church. And I just thought like, that guy, I think him and his dad kind of like dress alike. That was just like a thought that I had. But that was it. And then back then, they still do it now, but Guadalupe Church is, they would have their festival outside. And so one summer I attended the festival with my sisters, and he asked me to dance, and I didn't. We were like kind of just passing through. I'm like, oh, I just can't dance right now. But then it happens that after I said no to him, my friend stopped to talk to somebody. So then he came up again and asked me to dance. So then, okay, well, fine. So then we danced, and then I happened to like, oh, hey, what church do you go to? I asked him, and he's like, St. Michael's. I'm like, oh, I go to St. Michael's. But then come to realize the guy that I had thought about that he looks like or dresses like his dad was him, like so it was not until that next day at church I'm like, oh yeah, oh my God, that's the guy right there. So from there I think he asked me out to go after church to go out to eat, and then that's it. Then we've been hanging out ever since.
Kind of going back to or relating to teachers, but going back to your high school education, you mentioned your mother making string clothes or string cloths for your teachers. Could you elaborate on the significance of this gesture and its impact on your family's relationships in the community?
I think in Mexico, like teachers are really valued, and parents are very grateful. Um, so my mom, she just like knitted some, basically they were pot holders. And so some of I remember there was like a teacher's aide who lived in the neighborhood. So we were able to go to her house and give her these knitted pot holders that my mom had made. But it was just, it was just her way of saying thank you, and just being really grateful for all the help that, that the teachers would give us. So, and it's I mean, it's something different here. I think nowadays, I think a lot of teachers are not really, thanked through gifts. But that was just, her way of saying thank you. Hmm.
So I know that you described you working jobs and doing chores and stuff. Maybe like, did your brother do any jobs or any of them?
Yes. Maybe not so much like at the house, like, maybe just like clean his room kind of stuff. Uh, but I would say, I would say he was probably like the younger one who, that I can think of who had a job. His job was, he worked for the Milwaukee Journal. There were two newspapers. Milwaukee Journal was one and Milwaukee Sentinel was another one. I think it's like one was in the morning and one was in the afternoon. So you could get two papers in one day. Later on, they became one, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, as how it is right now. But what would happen is they would drop off every day like a stack of newspapers. So part of his job was he would have to put these papers together, like put the comic section, where it's supposed to go. And then he would, roll them up. The Sunday one was too thick, so no roll up was there. But then what he would do is he had this little grocery cart. So then he would put all the newspapers in there, and he had a specific route. So he had specific addresses that he needed to deliver those newspapers to. And then he would, deliver them. And then at a certain town, if it was like once a week or a certain time, then he would, go to the house and say, kind of like, okay, so now you owe me whatever the cost was of what they owed him, for the newspapers for the week or for the upcoming week. So what we would do is we would join him sometimes, rain or shine, however, whatever, he still had to deliver those newspapers. So we would, sometimes go with him to help him deliver them because like in the wintertime, it gets darker earlier. I do recall a time when I wanted to tag along and go with him to deliver these newspapers. I was like younger. I didn't have like, the best boots or anything like that. So I remember my feet got so cold that I could not walk anymore because, being the little girl that I was, I like to just, kind of walk on the snow banks and just kind of play in the snow as he was delivering the newspapers. But my feet got so cold that I just could not walk anymore. So he ended up bringing me back home inside of the grocery cart because I just couldn't walk. But that was his job. So he delivered the newspapers for the Milwaukee Journal.
Would the newspapers, if it was rainy or anything, would they ever get soggy? And then could you deliver those types of newspapers or no?
So he would put like a plastic just to to cover them up. So just like find a way to keep them dry, and then still be able to deliver them. Yeah. So it was not ever like just like the papers and then unprotected.
Would you guys run into any problems besides the weather while delivering?
He might have his own stories. I'm not sure if he was ever like assaulted or if anybody ever like took his money from after he collected the fees for the newspaper. I don't remember hearing anything like that. So I think the challenges I would say would be the weather and just like the time, trying to get them delivered, and then before it got dark, especially in the wintertime.
Now, going back to the adulthood and moving in with your husband, right away when you guys moved out, and well, where did you guys get married?
It's nice because so I would say even though I met him at a church festival, I think we kind of saw each other even though we didn't really talk right away at St. Michael's. So we got married at St. Michael's. We have 5 children, and they've all been baptized at St. Michael's, and the first communions at St. Michael's. So pretty much everything has been done at St. Michael's.
Is St. Michael's a church that's usually in Spanish or in English?
It is. St. Michael's is. I would say St. Michael's is probably the most multicultural church in Milwaukee, and probably even like the state, I would say. So when I started going to St. Michael's, it was pretty much like the English and Spanish, I would say. English and Spanish, and then a little bit of Hmong. Right now, St. Michael's has I think they have 7 languages that they have the masses in, the Karen, Karenni, Burmese, Laos, Hmong, English, Spanish. So it's a lot of it's very diverse.
Where is this church?
Yeah, so St. Michael's is on 24th and Cherry. 24th and Cherry. I think everyone should have the experience of attending Mass at St. Michael's. So when I started going to St. Michael's, we would have Mass on the main floor. I do remember hearing from some older parishioners about how when they started going to St. Michael's, there was no Spanish Mass. And once they did start having Spanish Mass, they were not allowed to have Mass on the main level. So they would have their Mass in the church hall downstairs, but now everything's held. All the Masses are held upstairs.
Apart from church festivals at St. Michael's, were there any other activities going on at St. Michael's? I don't know, stuff like Las Posadas or stuff like that.
Yeah, St. Michael's is I have a lot of really good memories from St. Michael's. So St. Michael's, not right now, but yes. One thing I like about St. Michael's is that we have dramas. So for example, coming up, the Our Lady of Guadalupe, we have the Mass, and then we have a drama where we make even the mountain, where the Virgin appeared, stuff like that. Our Lady appeared. So we have dramas for Our Lady of Guadalupe. We have dramas for Christmas, for Nativity. We have dramas for the Three Kings. We have dramas for Palm Sunday. So to me, all those different dramas make it more engaging, create memories. And then what else do we have? And then we do have, just within our Latino community, we used to have, not right now, but we did used to have posadas. And then the families who wanted to, so we would have the families who wanted to, the 9 days, each family would sponsor a posada. So what we would do is at a certain time, we would meet there, and then we would do the rosary. And then after the rosary, whoever the family sponsored the posada, they would bring the food for that day. And then we would have some games that the kids would play. We would eat, and then at the end of the evening, then the kids would get a little treat, a little bag with a treat or toy, something like that.
Would they have candies inside of the bags, and would it be more Mexican candies or
Yeah, and that whatever went on depended on who whatever family sponsored that day. I remember there's a family, Esparza family. So there's a lot of siblings, and so what they would do is they would I think amongst themselves they would everybody would within them they would contribute toys and stuff like that. So they would have a little drawing where all the kids would get tickets, and then they would call the number, and then the kid can go up and get a toy. So just, the extent of how much the kids got for that day just depended on the, on the family. But at minimum, a little, bag of candy or cookies. You know, I think we would try to make it as close to like Mexico, where you get your bag and like a little orange and some candy, animal crackers and some candy. Yeah, so it just depended on the family of what they wanted to put in that bag.
After church, what would you guys end up doing?
After church, usually for my family, we would, just come home, depending on how, if we ate breakfast before going to mass or not. Sometimes on Sundays we like sleep in and then get ready, and then we're like, getting to mass, and then after mass coming home and then having lunch, which would actually be more maybe like a brunch, more like a breakfast kind of lunch, and then just kind of relax the rest of the day.
Would you guys go to church on Sundays, or would you guys go maybe Saturday evenings, or would it just change?
Yeah, I think for us, we just try to go on Sundays. The sad thing about the Spanish Mass, so right now, Spanish Mass is not being held at St. Michael's; it's being held at St. Rose. But I think one of the sad parts is we have a small community compared to the parishes on the south side. So because of that, we try not to miss going to Sunday Mass, because then if it's few people and then we don't go, then it's even fewer people. So we try to go on Sunday Mass.
What types of things can you guys do to kind of like raise the community and like the people going to church and stuff like that?
I think one of the things that impacts, like for our Spanish Mass, is when they're changing the priests. So I think if the priests stay at the parish and build community, then I think that helps for, to attract more parishioners to come. It's hard also because if you have a low community of parishioners, and let's say because there's few numbers, there's not many youth, then it's kind of a little bit challenging to do like a youth group. Or if there's not many parishioners, then it's kind of hard to do activities when you have the same people doing, like the same people leading all the time. I think if we have like a stable a priest, that I think that would help a lot to build community, and then start doing more activities that maybe people in the south side will be willing to come over to the north side and attend Mass at St. Michael's or St. Rose.
Other than Mass, what other family gatherings would you guys have? Like, I know you mentioned about your picnics.
For my family, so we would have our, I think when I was younger, we would go on picnics. I think one thing, when I was younger, we didn't have air conditioners. We didn't have air conditioner. So one of the things that we like to do is like go on picnics. So we would go like to just, my dad would play baseball at Barron Park. So we would, get our stuff and then we would watch him play and then have a picnic. I think that was one of the big things. We would also, because my dad would work during the day, my mom would, it almost seemed like she was a single mom, but she would take us to like South Shore Park and then just go swimming in the lake there. She would pack us some lunches, a pitcher of lemonade, and then we would just, do that. I think the picnics were the big thing. In the south side, when we lived on Washington Street, one of the things that we like to do as kids is just like run around not the neighborhood, but the block. So playing like hide and seek or tag, and just, playing those games with the other kids from our block. I think it's pretty much the block, not running around the whole neighborhood, just that block. Just things like that is what we like to do, aside from the picnics.
Could you explain how would you view South Shore Park back then compared to now?
Let's see. Well, I think there's more things to do now than there was before. I think before it was just like the basic grass and sand, and then the water. I think we would just get in the water. We didn't know how to swim back then, so just getting in the water and not thinking about the quality of how clean is the water or that kind of stuff. Now there's more things to do. Now you have the little playground for the kids. There's the what is it called? Oh, it's like the beer garden that's already there. Yeah, there's the bike path. There's just so much to do. It's a lot better now than it was back then.
So what would you guys do to improvise for those things not being there?
Not too much. I mean, we would just like play in the sand kind of thing. I guess just use our imagination and just play in the sand and get in the water. Play in the water was pretty much what we would do.
Would you guys have a specific park you guys would always do your picnics at, or would it always vary? Maybe sometimes it would be at Barron, the other times at South Shore.
I would say those are the two more common ones. So South Shore was where my mom would take us to, when she would take us to the park, and then Barron Park is where we would go, like on Sundays when my dad would play baseball. I think a few times we went to the lakefront, but I think mostly it was South Shore Park and Barron Park, and maybe part of it was because that's what my mom knew, she learned how to drive here and here in the U.S. So I think maybe that's the only park she knew. Mm-hmm.
So what was your dad's team name?
The league was called the Beto Avila League, and I think one of the teams that he played was Los Alacranes. I do remember he had this baseball cap with the letter I. So I think there was this a bar called Indio's Place that he would sometimes go to. So I think at one time he might have played for representing that bar. Indio's Place is no longer. It used to be in front of El Rey, but it burned down. But the league was called the Beto Avila League. I want to say I think he was even vice president or president of the league. But then they would have at the end of the season they would have this at Mitchell Park in the pavilion. They would have the awards. They would have food and then give the trophies to whoever the winners were for the season, stuff like that. They would also have at the start of the season they would have a coronation. So each team would get a young girl to be their kind of their queen for the team, and they would do a little parade around the baseball field. So I know my sisters got to be queens for the team at one time or other. Mm-hmm.
So having your dad play in a baseball league, would that influence your family watching because at the time we know that baseball was a big sport here in Milwaukee. So would that your dad being on the baseball team, would that influence how you guys viewed baseball in Milwaukee?
Let's see. So we played. So he played baseball. It was more like a community league. So it didn't come into play too much with the Brewers or those professional leagues. So it was more just something to do on a Sunday on the community level.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you would like to add towards anything? Anything you'd like to go back to?
Let's see. I think just the different experiences that I've have had growing up. Being an immigrant myself, having immigrant parents, and just wanting something better for my kids, and not in the sense of like spoiling my kids, but just kind of having them have the experiences that maybe that I didn't have, and starting with just even with their education, how that's really important, and wanting them to become productive citizens, and just opening up whatever they want to have as their career, that they can do it. It's hard work, that they have our love and support, and so just I think all of that just kind of comes from being an immigrant and all the different experiences, the diversity with the people, my dad's work ethic, my mom's unconditional support, and then also my siblings, just the experiences of growing up together and all the experiences that we had together. All of that has made me what I am now, and then taking that, just adding on to it, and then wanting more for my own kids.
With your mom, what do you think her goals for her kids or you guys would have been?
I think my mom, for sure, I think a lot of people who come to the U.S., want a better life for their kids than what they had. So I'm sure that's what she wanted for us. I would say that she is proud of us, because I would say we are, successful, productive people. Thankfully nobody, got into trouble or, went the wrong way. And we are, we were raised Catholic, and we're all still Catholic. And so I think that, makes her very, very proud. Yeah. So I think the future that we have, the life that we have here now, is a lot better than the life that we would have had if we had stayed in Mexico.
Do you believe that your dad had the same idea?
Yes, definitely. Yes. He wanted to be able to, I mean, because it's only, being the sole provider for your family, like in Mexico, it's hard to make ends meet. So coming to the U.S. was his way of being able to be, to be able to provide more for the family and give us those opportunities. Mm-hmm.
Well, we want to thank you for giving us this chance to interview you and talk about your childhood, and I guess your vision of your immigration way of coming from Mexico to the U.S.
Thank you for inviting me, for interviewing me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.